In this video, I really want to talk specifically about the length of the fishing rods that we use. Because if you hear a lot of different anglers talk about what rods they use, you will hear sometimes vastly different answers when it comes to the length of the rod that someone uses. And so as an angler, this may be a little bit confusing. So in this video, I'm going to try to clear up a few things and also help you just to understand rod length a little bit better. Now, before we get into this video, this one's brought to you by my apparel company, Fin Fishing. And right now over at Fin Fishing for the month of January, so just a few more days, I am running a sale on all of my USA made sun shirts. It's actually a buy one, get one for 50% off sale. So all you got to do if you want to take advantage of this, add 2 sun shirts to cart, use the coupon code BOGOCAST50, and you'll get 50% off that second sun shirt. Also, I am going to be at the Columbus Fishing Expo February 7th, 8th, and 9th, which is just a few weeks away. So if you guys want to come down, I'm going to be there the entire time. I'm going to have a booth set up. I'm going to be doing a few seminars there as well. And I would love to get to meet a lot of you guys. So I will leave links down below for Fin Fishing and for the Columbus Fishing Expo down below. All right, let's talk a little bit about rod length. Now, one of the biggest things that you should understand about rod length and how it can impact different fishermen is that sometimes, depending on what fishing line you are using, will impact what rod you need to go with. And I've talked about this a lot, and it really comes down to understanding the power of your rod and the action of your rod, but it will even impact the length. So sometimes if you hear one angler say, hey, I really like a 7'6" rod, make sure you pay attention to what line they may be using, because that might be an angler who likes a 7'6" with straight fluorocarbon, and the other angler may like a 7'1" with braid to fluorocarbon. There's a big difference there. And so it's very important to always understand the entire system that a different angler has for every single technique out there. Now, when it comes to fishing rods, the first thing that you should know is that you can be accurate with every size length rod that you have. You can be a very accurate casting fisherman. But with that being said, you tend to be more accurate with shorter than average rods. Now, to me, I would consider a shorter rod anything that is about 7 foot and below. So for most part, I'm using rods that are like the shortest rod that I think I even own that I use for bass fishing is 6'9". So 6'9" to 7 foot is kind of where I live when it comes to shorter fishing rods. Now, some of you may have 6 foot rods or 6'6" rods, which I would consider very short rods, but those rods allow you to be a very precise caster. So if you are using a technique where you are specifically targeting something where you need to be very precise. Maybe you're skipping a jig up underneath of a dock. Maybe you are casting a spinnerbait next to a laydown. Maybe you are throwing different grass clumps. Whatever it may be, if you need to be very accurate at actually casting, and I'm not talking about pitching and flipping, I'm talking about casting, a shorter rod is going to allow you to typically be a little bit more precise. Now, I'm not saying you can't be precise with longer rods, but when it comes to longer rods, the biggest advantage that you have is one on the cast. You can typically cast baits a lot further by using a long rod. If you have the exact same reel, the exact same line, the exact same power and action of a rod, but one rod is 6'6" and the other rod is 7'6", and you cast the exact same 2 baits with these rods, the one with the 7'6" is going to go further, like almost every single time. Now, you can still get some great distance out of a 6'6" rod, but those longer rods, they just allow you to really load that rod up over a longer whatever, and you can launch those things out there. I mean, some of my deep crankbait rods, all of my deep crankbait rods are 7 foot 10", which is almost as long as the rods that I even own are. 7 foot 10", 7 foot 11", and they allow me to make a 60-yard bomb out there with a deep diving crankbait. The other advantage that you have when it comes to longer rods is that it is it is easier for you to set the hook on a fish when you are using straight monofilament or straight fluorocarbon. Both fluorocarbon and monofilament have a decent amount of stretch in them. You know, mono has a lot of stretch. Even fluoro, though, will stretch by 20%. So if you are using techniques where you are making a cast out there, like we'll say a football jig or a big worm or a Carolina rig, having a longer rod, 7 foot 6 inch, 7 foot 7 inch. Really, to me, I think a long rod is pretty much anything between about 7 foot 4 and above. Having those long rods, it will help you to be able to set the hook at a distance with those lines. Now, if you are using straight braided line, the length of the rod doesn't matter as much in that situation because the braid has zero stretch to it. So really, it doesn't make a difference in those situations at times, whether you use a 6'6" or a 7'6" rod. But with fluorocarbon and mono, I would highly suggest that you use a longer rod if you are making long bomb casts, especially with those single hooked baits. So that's very, very important to understand. Now, obviously, you kind of have what's in between, which is kind of like a 7'1", 7'2", 7'3". To me, these are the best sized all-around rods. I truly believe that. A lot of rods that I own are 7'1", 7'2", 7'3". They allow you to be very accurate. They allow you to get long casts. And if you can only afford a few rods, then get ones that are in that length because you can do a little bit of everything with them. The other thing that also is very important to understand about rod length is that depending on how tall you are as an angler, like your physical stature is going to also help you to be either better or worse, for example, with a long rod. Like if you are 5'6" in height, you know, trying to cast a 7'6" rod, like it's a little bit different than if you are 6'4". Like there's just a difference there. So typically guys that are a little bit taller can manage bigger rods a little bit better. And guys that are a little bit shorter may need a little bit shorter rods. So when it comes to rods, you can typically use a kind of a spectrum of sizes. And, you know, I always like to say, like, if you can only have a few, like I said, stick with the 7'1s, 7'2s, 7'3s. That's a good, happy, all-around rod length. But maybe you're an angler who does a lot of bank fishing, where you are typically making those very accurate casts and having to stomp through, you know, trees to get to a bank fishing spot. Those shorter rods may be a better option. So anyways, I hope you understand rods lengths a little bit better, and I will see you guys tomorrow.